I got another special treat for you guys today. Dude's an absolute animal. Liam and I met, it's probably been what? Probably 4 years ago. 2019 maybe, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Sam's event?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool. We were at Sam's event out in Utah, Sam Taggart's event. And we got connected by another mutual friend, Parker. Parker's been on the podcast too. Good friend of ours. Worked alongside of him, trained both of us. And so it's just fun to see. You brought a squad with you, I think, when you were out there. You had a few of your reps with you.
Like 25 guys or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super cool. And just like watch what you guys have done since then, it's been pretty amazing. And I just figured, we don't have a lot of sales reps on here. Well, we had a few. It was a great time. I've been in talks about doing it for a minute. So obviously I've been watching you from afar. You've been watching me from afar. So it's not like we haven't talked in probably 4 or 5 months since you jumped on the last call. But it's been a minute. So I figured we'd catch up. We just said, hey, if we're going to catch up, we might as well do a podcast, right?
May as well,
Yeah, but it's Liam's first official podcast, being on the other side of it. He's been the one hosting a podcast once, but now I could ask him a lot of questions. So Liam McTigue's here. He's a stud. Lots to talk about today. You've been through a lot. He does pest control. But welcome to the show, Liam. Appreciate you being here with us.
Awesome. Stoked that you guys were having me.
Yeah, it's super cool. So first, I always ask the same question. If you and I were in high school, which not too long ago for you, if you and I were in high school, junior, senior high school, who was Liam in high school?
Who was I in high school? To be honest with you, I was kind of a wanderer in high school. I had friends, but I grew up in Hawaii, and a lot of my friends were professional surfers, and that was the route that I wanted to go down. So in high school, I kind of went to it was like a college prep school, and everybody there was hyper focused on going to college and being in that kind of traditional career path. So I didn't really fit in, but I had my friends in high school, but most of the time I was thinking about surfing. I was one of those guys who didn't like school. And I actually hated going to school every day, but looking back at it now, I am definitely appreciative of my education.
Have you always been motivated? Have you always been driven? Were you competitive back then? Were you in sports? And obviously surfing got brought up. You say most of your friends are professional surfers, so obviously super competitive. Were you born and raised in Hawaii?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Hawaii, and I got into surfing at a young age. So I was always pretty driven. I mean, even when I worked as a lifeguard, I worked at a waterfall where you could get tips, and I hustled for tips. And I didn't have sponsors like a lot of my friends did, and they were making money and they were traveling the world, and that just killed me. So as I was working at the waterfall, I kind of realized that when I hit about 19 years old, I realized I wasn't going to be a pro surfer, and my whole driving force just became, how can I make enough money to live a life where I can surf and enjoy all the things that I want to, and be free without having to be constrained by money and obligation and working a 9 to 5.
Yeah, I think we all had that same drive, especially young at 19 years old. So where do you go from there? You just realize that your surfing career's over. You're not going to go pro. Your friends are gone pro. I get it. And how do you said you want to be free, you want to make money. Where do you go from there?
Yeah. So after I realized I wasn't going to be a professional surfer, my dad was kind of pushing me to go to college. So I ended up going to a small Christian school on the beach in California, and went to my first year in school. And as I was sitting in school, I wasn't always the smartest. I knew that I did not want to be an accountant or sitting behind a desk. My dad's in finance, but he's in financial sales, right? So I knew from a young age that, or from at that point, that I needed to figure something out, but I was also lost and I didn't know what I was going to do. So as I was going to classes, I felt like I wasn't really learning much, and I didn't want to go to all these job fairs. I heard the salaries you'd be making were like $40,000 a year. And I just couldn't imagine, with the price of rent and the cost of living, that $40,000 a year could get me to where I wanted to be or provide me the life that I wanted to live. So basically what happened was After my first year of college, I realized I had to figure something out. And I had a buddy that had a friend of a friend whose cousin did pest control.
Really?
Yeah. So he recruited me, and I ended up going out to Ohio.
How did he recruit you? Where did you, like, just text message, Instagram? Where did he find you? Because you're in Hawaii, right? At this time?
No, so I moved to California
Okay.
at
You're in
this
California.
time. So I just did a year in San Diego. So it was my buddy Andy Farmer, and his friend from Huntington Beach had an older brother named Neil Rumler. And Neil Rumler was the one who recruited me, and he got on the phone with me and wanted to recruit Andy and I. So Andy sucked me into this whole thing. I was super hesitant at first. I thought it was a pyramid scheme, door-to-door sales. And I didn't really want to go, but my thought process was, well, I have to figure something out. And when you're in a place of not knowing what to do, I think one of the things that I've always kind of thought is just do something and the rest will come. So yeah, Neil recruited me and Andy, but a week before we were supposed to go out to Ohio, Andy bailed. So it was just me, and I had never met Neil in person. I had just done video chats with him, and I ended up just getting on a plane to Ohio, and the rest is kind of history.
That's wild. So why did Andy bail?
Andy wanted to stay in California and fish, and he just couldn't see himself living in Ohio for a summer. I remember getting on the plane and touching down in Ohio, because my dad told me originally not to do it. He's like, it sounds like a scheme. Sales is very difficult. You're probably not going to make nearly as much money as they tell you will.
What did he tell you that you'd make their first year?
My dad said, I told him I wanted to make 30 grand, and my dad kind of laughed at me. He's like, yeah. Because he understood the sales industry, where it's like companies can promise all these earnings, but the reality of it is it's solely dependent on you, and most people don't make.
Yeah, was Andy pitching you a price when he was recruiting you, or was he not talking about money really?
Well, Andy was kind of like my buddy who was getting recruited with me. So he's like, should we do this? Let's do it. But Neil was pitching me on the money that you could make.
Was he?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was he saying over the phone? Like, where did he say you're going to make your first summer?
Well, he said I could make 30 grand if I did 200 accounts.
So he was realistic. Like he wasn't pitching on 6 figures your first year, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then you touch down in Ohio, and what happens there?
Yeah. So I remember landing the plane in Ohio and just thinking to myself, like, what have I done? And I get to the airport. I think I caught an Uber to the apartment complex. I meet Neil, and I meet some of the boys, and these guys are all LDS and very straight edged guys. But they were all really good guys, and they ended up becoming my best friends. So the next day we roll out to Hood. They do a brief training.
Like walk me through the brief training. Like you don't know pest control at all at this point? Zero?
I don't know pest control at all. Neil has gone through the initial with me, which I've practiced. But other than that, I don't know much. And I remember getting out to a neighborhood in Ohio where they drove me out and dropped me off with an iPad, and my heart just sunk. And I remember walking up to the first door and just being absolutely
terrified.
Yeah. And I just started knocking and getting yelled at. And I finally, at the end of the day, had a lay down, and I made one sale. And that was a huge win for me. Yeah.
That's wild, because you don't really know what you're talking about. You don't, like, your initial pitch, like you're just winging it. But again, if you talk to enough people, like you're going to get lucky. It is a numbers game at some point until you get better.
Yeah. And so it was so tough because I just didn't know what to say. I would say, the initial script, and then from there I was just lost. I was like, where do I go from here? I had no idea. And one of the things that irritated me was that a lot of the other reps on the team were selling, and they were making whatever, 2 grand a day. They were making 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 sales a day. And I was selling one. The second day I bageled. And by the end of the week, I think I had 6 sales, which were all laydowns. But it was bothering me how the guys next to me in the office were doing 4, 5, 6 a day. And I saw the potential, and it made me wonder, like, what on earth are these guys saying that I'm not? And um, it was kind of like when you see a very attractive woman with an ugly guy, you think to yourself, like, what on earth does that guy have to attract that girl? So that's what kind of intrigued me in sales. And then finally, the owner, they kind of saw me struggling, but he sent me out with a rep. His name was Spencer Hale, and he's a great salesman. Um, they sent me out with Spencer, and I remember knocking 2 to 3 doors because I was thinking the reason these guys are selling, they must be in better neighborhoods. It must be something outside of myself because these people don't want it. They don't want pest control. And Spencer came out. We knocked like 3 doors, and within 3 doors, this guy comes out all pissed off. Says, "Get out of here! I don't, get the f off my property." Was pretty like a hard no. And Spencer pulled back, cracked the joke, and he saw the guy was in the military. Started talking about the military, and then 15 minutes we're in this guy's backyard, and he's reading off his American Express card for $700 for pest control. And that's when I was hooked. I was fascinated in what makes people buy, because I realized that if I could be able to convince somebody to do something, I would never have a problem making money in my life.
Are you sick of paying marketing agencies and not getting results? Well, we are hosting the #1 step-by-step class on how to attract and generate sales without paying a marketing agency or having a huge budget. Most lawn care and pest control owners get stuck at a ceiling because they're dealing with outdated systems or relying on guesswork waiting for the phones to ring. Our upcoming class this Thursday provides proven strategies to generate hundreds of leads without a huge budget. We'll show you how to build a predictable system to grow past $1 million. We show you how to automate your marketing. We'll also teach you how to delegate and build your team so you have more time. So click the link in the description below. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this. This is the one thing that I wish I had learned a lot sooner. Now, let's get back to the show. And how long did you knock with him for? Was it just the day, a week?
Just that day.
Just that day. Did that one sale change your life, the outlook on sales? But how did you do the next day?
It was still a slow process, but I ended up selling. It wasn't a very high top performing office, but I ended up doing like 180 accounts my first summer. I was the #1 rookie in that office. I started working Sundays, just whatever I could do. And by the end of the summer, I had made 30 grand.
And your dad said you couldn't?
Yeah, my dad was proud of me. Actually, a month in, I was telling him, yeah, Dad, maybe you were right. Maybe I should go home. Maybe this isn't for me. And at that point, my dad said, "You're not going home. You're not a quitter. You're going to stick it out." And I'm glad I have a dad like that to just say, this is what you're going to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Because what, like for the first 3 weeks to a month, what made you stay out there? Because you've seen it. Like so many people fall off right there. Yes, it's hard at first, but just to get good at anything at life, you got to do 10,000 reps at least just to be good at it. It's like, but what made you stay out there that first month and not quit?
I think my ego.
Yeah. It's good to have, right?
If I'm being completely honest, it's just when you're in an environment where people are succeeding around you and you're not, it almost becomes not about the money, but just about how you see yourself. And that's kind of what pushed me, as well as the fact that I realized that I didn't want to be an accountant. I didn't want to be working a 9 to 5, and I don't want to be a slave to the system. So I put in 1,000% effort and pounded doors and trained like a maniac and learned sales and role played as much as I possibly could to get to the point where I could see progress. And once I started seeing that progress, it was like addicting.
I love that. And how much, so you said you started working on Sundays. What was your schedule like to begin with the year? And then what was it like towards the end?
So, I didn't work every Sunday because I realized I needed a break. And at one point they came to me and said, "Hey, you're going to get burnt out." But the schedule was kind of the old pest control traditional schedule where it was 9 a.m. meeting, on the doors by 11. I think it was 11, and then you took 11 to 2. You knocked, and then 2 to 3 was lunch, and then 3 to dark. And Ohio was one of those states where it was super. It got dark super late, so we could knock till 9,
Like
9:30.
10 o'clock. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And that schedule was brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had a great first summer, honestly. 180 accounts first year is great.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. And so at the end of the summer, they kind of showed me the potential of what would happen if I could recruit, and they're pushing me to recruit. And that's how my first summer I went back to California and started recruiting, and I got like 10 guys. And the second summer I went out, did a couple hundred accounts, which I did 200, which wasn't very good at all. And I still felt like there was this gap in my sales ability that I wasn't figuring out.
Now, is that because you were managing more people at that time? Was that part of it?
No,
No.
something in my mind about the sales process wasn't clicking. So my second summer, I was in Cincinnati, and then, but at the same time, and what I was so pumped upon is recruiting, because I could get all my friends to go make a crap ton of money, and we could go travel and do whatever we wanted, and we'd have money in college. But then also the fact of the earnings, they showed me the projections of like hundreds of thousands of dollars you could make. So the second summer I went out, I made like 70 grand, which wasn't that much with my overrides and my sales. The third summer, I went out to Chicago and recruited a team. I came back to Hawaii, or not Hawaii, came back to California, recruited a team of 20 guys, went out to Chicago. And it was still a difficult summer for sales for me. And the only thing that got me to 330 accounts my third summer was just sheer hard work. And something still wasn't clicking. So at that point, I started going to door con, and I started learning about, like, I heard these stories of guys doing 50 accounts a week, and I was just, or 60, 80 accounts a week. And I was just blown away. So I went to door con. I saw Parker Langeveld, who you've had on the podcast. I saw him speak. And when I saw him speak, something just started making sense in my mind. So I ended up calling him randomly later, somehow getting his number through someone. I forgot who it was. I paid somebody $400 for Parker's number.
That's so awesome.
It was an accountant. I remember I was like, how can I have to learn what this guy is saying or whatever he's doing? I have to find his number. And I remember he had an accountant that said, "Oh, I do Parker's accounting and taxes or whatever." So yeah, that's kind of a funny story. But I remember texting him, "Hey, can I have Parker's number?" He never did. And I texted him a month later. He never gave me his number. 2 months later, I said, "Hey man, I'll send you $400 if you can give me his number." I Venmoed him $400 before he responded, and I got back his number. Yeah. And then I called Parker randomly, and he wasn't training people at that point. I mean, he had a team, but he started doing one-on-one calls with me, and that was
probably the same year we met, right? It had to have been.
Yeah.
Because that's when he was not working for the company that he was working for. But yeah, that's when I met him, but it cost me $5,000 to meet him.
Well, it costed me 20 grand.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's more to this story. All in, it was like right around 100 grand, all said and done. But the first $5,000 was basically to get Parker. And again, man, I wouldn't rather learn. Like, he's such a stud. Like, he knows his shit. He's on a different level. He really is.
Yeah. He was able to, because I think a lot of people who are in sales are naturally gifted, the ones who do well, and they're not consciously competent. So it's almost like they're very good at it. It's just their personality. They have good looks, whatever it is, but they don't understand what they're doing. And the problem with that is that they don't understand how to articulate, train, and replicate reps in a way that can bring low-level reps to a high level. And the thing about Parker is he has this ability to explain and understand concepts in a way that made me understand personally. And that's what got me to basically doubled my sales production the following years.
Take me back to recruiting your first 10 dudes, and then Second summer, you recruited 20 dudes, go to Chicago. How were you recruiting at the time? What were you doing to find recruits? How'd you get them to stick?
Yeah. So I was basically just, I came back, I told everybody about the money, and to my surprise, they didn't care about the money. I was in some, this college that was very expensive, and most of the kids, when I said 30 grand, they were like, yeah, it's no big deal to me. Or they didn't believe it. And I think at the root of it, they were scared. I remember I created a list of about 100 people, and I called 100 people. I remember walking down, you know, campus lane or whatever it was. And because I would just say, hey, I went out, sold pest control this summer. Um, you got to come sit down to lunch with me. And nobody would sit down for lunch with me. And I called 100 people. None of my like best friends came out. Andy never came out, even though he saw that it was real. Um, and I got this one rep named Justice Drickwarda through one referral that I got. So there's this one kid who was kind of I basically hit up everybody, and there was this one kid who wouldn't have done good at sales, but I took him out to lunch, and he was appreciative of me telling him his story, and he ended up sending me a kid. Hey, this is my friend Justice. I think he would do really good at it.
Met Justice.
Yeah. And Justice was one of those kids at the time where, he was on a scholarship. He didn't come from a lot of money. He was working at Starbucks to pay for school. Um, and it's funny because I just so happened to find him where he was the kind of guy, just to give you some perspective, he got invited to the National Starbucks Barista Championship.
Didn't you know such a thing?
Yeah, I didn't know there was either, but it's kind of like how Tony Robbins talks about there's people who are just double baggers, who at the cash register, they're just going to work harder despite that's just in their nature to work hard. So I recruited him and a few other guys, and that 10 guys that summer, 3 came back, which was tough, but I had 3 solid reps that came back. And through them, it turned into 20 that Chicago summer. And from there, it kind of all just was like an avalanche. Once I got a house, I started living with all my reps. People saw us with, the money we made. They saw us having a good time. And then it was kind of easy. We kind of created a culture of friends that all loved each other and were super close, like brothers. And it turned into 50 the following summer. And then that was my summer at Moxie, where Parker kind of helped me and taught me how to recruit. And I went to 100 the following summer at Hawks. So I recruited 100 guys. So yeah, that's kind of how that looked like.
Yeah, that was a big jump. You doubled every single year from 50 to 100. What were you doing? What did you do to recruit those next 50? Was that just through your team?
Yeah, that was just through my team.
Create a hundreds list and having them reach out.
I think what it was is that I was truly passionate about the opportunity that I could provide. And I reached out to everybody and anybody who was willing to listen. And now I would probably change my approach slightly. I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is how to pick and what kind of personality
For
traits
sure.
make the best sales reps. But at the time, I think I didn't have that experience. So I had to learn through repetition alone. And I would just talk to anybody and everybody and take everybody that I could get. And I had to learn the hard way, seeing reps go home and struggle. But yeah.
Which profile type kid do you think does the best? I know the answer, but in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, as far as sales reps that do the best, I think it comes down to, I like to look at the big 5 personality test. I think the number one trait that's important in door-to-door sales is if somebody who's low in agreeableness, right? Because when you come to a door, what that customer is trying to do is make you doubt that they're a potential customer. So somebody who's low in agreeableness is not going to internalize that customer's beliefs, right? just to break down what agreeableness is, like, it's not necessarily being like a person who always disagrees with everybody, but it's kind of somebody who knows what they want, right? So if you ask a disagreeable person, like, where do you want to eat? They're going to tell you. If you ask an agreeable person, they'll say, I don't know. What do you want? Right. So I think that's the number one trait that I would say is low agreeableness. And then another thing that I think people have a hard time hearing is I do think IQ is associated with sales. So the higher IQ you have, the better able you are to solve complex problems and solutions, right? When a customer gives you an objection, you have to find a way to make it make sense in their mind and find different angles that make sense to them. So I think high IQ, low disagreeableness, obviously conscientiousness, somebody who works hard, highly industrious. And then the other trait that's important, I think, is extroversion and introversion, right? So a lot of people think, oh, extroverts do the best in sales, introverts don't. Um, One of the things I realized about salespeople is that the people who are ambiverts, who are kind of smack dab in the middle, tend to do the best. The reason why is because if you're too extroverted, you have a hard time listening. They don't listen as well as introverts. If you're too introverted, you're going to hate talking to people all day, right? You just can't be around that many different people. So if you're an ambivert, which is kind of smack dab in the middle of extrovert and introvert, you're going to be able to, number one, stand being around people, but also being able to listen to people. And I think that's one of the most important characteristics of a great salesperson is they're a great listener.
So did that help you recruiting wise too? You're out there going and talking to people looking for those character traits and they really pressing hard on those people.
Yeah. So for sure, I mean, a lot of the people that I recruited that I knew that were going to do well, like, I think it saved me a lot of money because I could sit down with somebody at lunch and through one conversation, I felt, and I truly believe this, I can feel if somebody can do well or not. And you never know, right? There is always exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, I have a pretty good sense to what somebody, if they can succeed or not.
What made you go from the current company over to the next company when you recruited from 50 to 100? I mean, you're at the same company for Moxie for a while, right?
Yeah, I did 4 years at Moxie. When I was at Moxie, I just felt like I wasn't progressing. It was almost like I was at the tip of I was at the top, and I just didn't feel like I was learning more. So at this point in my career, I wanted to learn more about sales. I saw how good Parker can recruit, how good he was in managing and whatnot. So I felt like there was a lot to learn, and Parker was the reason I went to Hawks, 100%. And they kind of sold me on like the blue sky vision of, hey, they told me this company was going to go public. Um, and so I was young and naive and believed it. And I think I don't regret making the choice. I learned a lot, but that is what got me to go to Hawks. I met with Mike Paulus, who is the one who bought Hawks at the time.
I met him at a conference.
Yeah, and I was extremely excited about what they were doing just with the app. There was all the new technology they were using to kind of figure out markets, and so it just seemed like a place where I could learn the most.
Yeah, but you didn't stay there very long, right?
No, no. So basically, and this is where I take 100% responsibility, is when I left Moxie, my back end was supposed to be like 391,000. I left midsummer.
How did you left midsummer?
Not midsummer. I had just done 400 accounts, and it was like late July, like August 5th or 6th or something. I did like 430 accounts at that point. And basically, the owner of Moxie at the time was kind of pushing me to give me a decision, or to make a decision. Are you going to sign back? And I was kind of delaying. Um, but he wanted a decision, and I thought because he's taken care of me up to that point, that deserved it. And that's one of the things I've learned now is that people don't always need to know exactly what you're doing, because right when I um, gave him my decision, all of my reps started getting signed and money thrown at them to stay. Right. And I, pretty much Moxie at the time kept none of my reps because they were all very loyal to me and the culture. So I brought all of my reps. I think it ended up being, of that 50, 35 came with me to Hawks, and that's what turned into 100. A few of them didn't even come back. But yeah, that's how I ended up at Hawks. But when I did leave, I violated a non-solicit. And as a young sales rep who, in my mind, I thought I personally trained and recruited all of these sales reps, they should be mine. I left, violated the non-solicit, and wasn't paid $391,000 that I was owed. And Hawks at the time said, "Hey, we're going to go after Moxie for the money," but ended up not going after because they would have lost the lawsuit. So basically, I lost out on that money. And when I came over, they fronted me some money to get on my feet to re-recruit and all that, and all of that. And basically, my next year's back end was deducted from what they fronted. So yeah, that's kind of what happened.
A lot to unpack there, but I know you said you learned a lot. What did you learn the most through that process? I mean, like there's a lot of money on the table. You lost 390 grand, but what did you learn the most? Bring back to the money.
The most important thing in business is doing business with people that you trust. And if people have a track record of taking care of you and they're good people, don't leave. That's what I would say. I mean, yeah, there's going to be times where there's other opportunities that are better in the future. But the most important thing in business is trust and being with people. Because a lot of people tell me business is business, which, I say it too sometimes, but I think business is not business. Business is people, and people have lives that, and families and kids and expenses. So it's like, I think it's very important to be principled in how you operate in business and not, just treat people right. That's what I learned.
Yeah, good. How did you, or did you ever recoup any of your money? Or I know, I think I know the answer. You had to start basically from zero.
Yeah. Once I realized that Hawks was going to be unable to go after Moxie for the money because, the contract, I was wrong. I was pretty upset with Hawks because they said they were going to go after him and they were going to win, but nothing's certain. And I was convinced that if Moxie didn't pay me, that, they were in the wrong, but they weren't. So I was pretty upset with that situation at Hawks, and the retention that following year, because of all the growth, was not very good. So the money that a lot of my reps made was um, not what they were expecting. So yeah, I ended up getting into solar after that for a year. Just went by
The
myself.
next thing was like, that was the next thing. Like, how do you get motivated to get back out in the doors? And then you said that you went into solar. Why solar?
How do you get motivated? I mean, I was depressed after that period of time
You know,
because I worked.
you and I talked right during that period. You called me to talk about it.
Yeah,
I remember you called me to talk to you before you went too, and I said, I have my reservations. I said I don't think I'd do it.
yeah. But I was sold on the vision, man. I was sold on a blue sky vision, and I think that's how a lot of companies get young kids. Um, and I understand from Hawks's perspective that
Of
I
course
didn't
they want you. Of course,
read
you
the
know.
contract. Yeah, but I will tell you. So after that summer, I lost a lot of my reps because they didn't make what was promised. And during the summer at Hawks, when I had 100 guys and I was managing guys, I was under so much stress that I kind of just cracked. and a lot of my guys didn't succeed. And I think part of the reason I was such a good recruiter was because I cared so much about every single rep that I had. But at the same time, when I saw them not earn what they wanted to due to retention and due to, scaling a massive office and not having the technicians, perform as I was used to, um, and I it was bummed. I was very sad for my guys, and I took a year off of managing guys, or even still to this day, I haven't recruited very many reps. I just have a kind of a small group of guys that I roll with right now. But yeah,
So how did you get back into it, and why solar?
solar at the time, I mean, guys were making a lot of money and you didn't need a lot of reps, because what I didn't want to do is take all my reps to another company and violate another non-solicit.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
I was like, okay, I learned my lesson. Now they're all going to stay at Hawks or go their own thing, but I'm not going to take them anywhere because I'd be violating the contract again. So I was kind of alone, and I figured, well, why not go sell a higher ticket item that I could make more money individually on? And that's kind of what I went to solar. Um, and solar was fine. I had a good summer, made some money, but then my brother wanted to come out and sell, and a couple of his friends wanted to come out. So I was like, you know what? I think pest is a better, easier sale for first year reps to get into. So then I got back into pest control.
And every person needs pest control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And interest rates went up, and it made solar a little bit tougher. And I just saw I could make more money in pest control, and I liked it more. I knew it more. So yeah.
What did you do in your off seasons?
My off seasons, I traveled, man. I enjoyed them. Yeah. I had a good time traveling. I had fun. Surfed, you know,
A lot.
yeah, a
Off
lot.
season.
I've been
Every
to,
day in IG you're surfing.
yeah.
Those waves are wild.
Yeah. No, surfing, it's the thrill of it, man. Surfing big waves, uh, there's no other feeling in the world than pulling into a massive barrel and the adrenaline that you get when you're getting spit out of a wave and you hear the beach erupt. It's the best feeling in the world. So um, surfing, going back home, that's one of the things that helped me kind of get centered again after that whole situation.
You went on some trips this year. Where were you this year?
Yeah, so I went to, where did I go this year? I went to Europe, went snowboarding. That was a great time. I went to Bali, Indonesia, and Bali's an amazing place, just beautiful. Just the waves are all time, the conditions are perfect. But in the past, I mean, I've kind of taken trips to Fiji, Tahiti, Mexico, and they've all been amazing places. And that's kind of why I work, is so I can surf.
You're back in pest control now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Where are you working at?
I'm working with my buddy Tanner Sessions at Alder. So it's a small company. Went out last year, did 320K, made a couple hundred grand, and then it allowed me to surf, and it's been good. But yeah, now I'm back here this summer and gonna go do it again.
I know I asked you for the podcast, and it's a love-hate relationship. But are you excited about the summer?
Yeah. No, I'm excited. I'm excited to crush new goals. Um, it's always a learning experience, and I think it's always good to sometimes I after you surf or you're not doing anything for a few months and you're traveling and you're living it up, it comes to a point where you're like, okay, I want to work.
It would be hard for me to travel all the time. Like, it's hard for me to even like leave for 4 or 5 days. It just bothers me. Like, I feel like you could be
Really?
doing more all the time. Yeah, drives me crazy. Like, I leave on Tuesday for California. I'm taking my girls to Disney, and I'm excited for the girls. I'm taking my sister with. Like, super excited. But at the same time, I feel guilty. Like every time I go, like I should just be working more, working harder. Today's a Sunday. We're still on the podcast. Worked all day today. Like, it's just who I am as a nature, and I can't shut it off. And I try to do my best, but it just doesn't stop.
What do you think motivates you?
I don't know, man. Like, I'd say early on, money, to be honest. I think that's most of our motivation early on in the game. And now it's so cliche as it sounds. Like, I love watching my guys win. Like, it is the coolest thing to watch 25-year-old kid, own multiple branches, other friends buying new vehicles at a young age, cash. And it's just the coolest thing ever to actually help people in life break through that 9 to 5 barrier and go do something with their life, especially people who are motivated and hungry to want to go do something big. And I've been driven since I was young. I always knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to build something massive. I didn't have the vehicle to get me where I wanted to go. And I feel like now I have that vehicle. Now it's a machine. It's incredible. And I love doing what we're doing. I can't see what we do the next couple of years. It's been a fun ride. Legacy is probably another big thing. My dad got killed a couple of years ago. We were really close. And I told him all the time that everyone's going to remember our last name. It's make sure that I live out his legacy too for him and make him proud. And it's a lot of things, my kids too. I want to make sure that they're taken care of, and not so much financially, but in a way, that they're set up. Doesn't mean that I want to give them money or give them things. Obviously they all work super hard. Every single one of them, they're from 5 to 15, extremely smart, extremely driven, extremely hardworking. So it's not like they need to be given things, but if the time does come and I pass, I want to make sure that they're set up, that their kids are set up. And yeah, there's a lot of things that motivate me, but it's changed over the years. I feel like it changes every year too. Just different seasons of life, early 20s, early 30s, more money driven. And then now I'm in my 40s now, I got a family. It's totally different, and just, building a monster. I guess in a way, to be honest with you, I love the notoriety part of it too. I'm not going to lie, get my name out there. It's fun. I love it. And I love my job every single day. I get to work with people. I get to talk with people like you. I get to learn from the best in the industry. I have friends all over the country. I talk to them every single day. Same business-minded people, driven, doing big things, just helping each other. So there's a lot to unpack, but that's the majority of it.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely resonate with the feeling you get when you see somebody get their back end check and you see somebody succeed and you've helped them through it. And, I still have reps that come up to me today and thank them and say, "Hey, thanks so much for what you did or what you taught me. That experience was life-changing for me and it changed my whole outlook on everything." And I can see how that it's one of the most motivating feelings that you can ever have.
Yeah, one of my close guys. He'll know if he listens to the podcast, and the team will know. I have a lot of close guys, but this one individually, close friend of mine, was working at a bar during COVID. Tried to recruit him for 6 months. I coached him in wrestling. Good kid. Always working at a bar. He just graduated from college. Drinking every night till 4 or 5 p.m. or 5 a.m. Going home, sleeping till 2, 3, 4 o'clock, getting back up, doing the same routine. Tried to recruit him. Wouldn't give me the time of day. Stud of a wrestler. Always in good shape. Played collegiate soccer, and then he's just going down the wrong path and drinking all the time, overweight, just rough, He's living on his in-laws' couch. That's his girlfriend's couch, mom's couch. And that's where he was at in his life. And they finally got shut down in business because of COVID, and he finally gave him the opportunity. And I pitched him the wrong way too. Early on, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, "Yeah, what's the most money you ever made in a summer?" He's like, $5,000. I was like, "Well, how would you feel about making $5,000 in a day?" And he's like, "There's no way." And I was like, "Just come with me, see what you think." And so he came out with me. He bageled for the first 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks straight. And then I was in Utah with you guys. Flew from Utah to Arizona. They were struggling. We were just doing a pre-blitz in Arizona. There's 110 reps that just got dropped off from, I can't remember which company. And kids everywhere doing a preseason blitz. And I went and sold a drop an account right in front of him that he couldn't close in front of him, and it hit right there. He's like, you just have to ask, right? And but anyways, so long story short, the other night, and he went through 75 hard recently too, lost 50 pounds. I mean, he owns a couple offices. He manages a bunch of dudes, and he's just murdering it. He's 27. And then I ran into his mom not last night, 2 weeks ago. Ran into his mom, and she came up to me and gave me a huge hug. And she's like, "Jonas, I just wanted to thank you for everything that you've done." And like, that's the shit right there that I just changed someone's, like, not just me, obviously. I put the opportunity there. He took it. He was the same kid who, for the first 2 years, came to my house almost every single day and sat in the hot tub just to pick my brain every day. And what you can't teach is implementation. So he'd actually do the things I would say to do, and he'd go do it. And I mean, there's multiple people in the company, but his mom just the one who came up to me and gave me a hug. And she said, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done. And she wasn't even talking about the money. She wasn't talking about the trucks. She wasn't talking about the new house they're building. She was just talking about his health. I stopped drinking 5 years ago. The people around me started to stop drinking. They all stopped smoking. They started getting healthier. Like I didn't expect that part of it, but us as leaders, like we don't have to tell them what to do. We just got to lead by example and they'll follow for the most part, you know? So yeah, that's a lot of it, to be honest with you. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the most motivating factor for me, at least.
It's like, how many people can I change now? Like how many people can I make an impact for? There's another kid, he just turned 21, grew up in a really rough household, extremely rough. Good family, good mom, you know, good siblings, but very, very rough. Dad's drug addict, just rough life, you know. Just turned 21. It's the second summer with us. We recruited him from Best Buy. James went to go talk to him. He goes, "What do you do for a living?" He goes, "I do sales, and I'm the best at it." James knew right then, like this kid's going to be different. He was like in the top 50 sales guys, like in Best Buy or top 100 or whatever it was. He sold like a couple $1 million in revenue, but was making $17 an hour. James said, "Just come out with me for a day." James dropped like 7 sales in front of him in like 4 hours. Called work that day and quit on the spot. Last year was the second summer with us. He hit a golden door. Dropped 1,000 accounts.
Wow. Amazing.
And now that kid's driving a brand new Tesla, you know, like he's buying his parents stuff. His parents are coming to like listen to his podcast. They're coming to his house, like showing him all this, like just taking care of his family. Like how many people can we change like that, you know, like give them the opportunity.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, out of curiosity, what do you think? Because I know you mentioned earlier that you know the profile that makes somebody successful at sales. Like, what do you think it is that makes somebody successful at sales?
I'd hate to say in one word, and not everyone has it, but you either have it or you don't. And that's a multitude of things, right? At the end of the day, if you're driven and you believe in yourself, anything's possible. Anything. So just being committed to yourself, and that you take responsibility for your own actions. Like you said earlier, you know, not everyone can do sales, but if you practice, like you said, you practice the pitch over and over and over and got better and ask questions. Like you can't teach that stuff. And another thing is grit. You have to have grit. It's gonna be hard. Whether you own a business or whether you're a sales guy, even if you're a technician, you're gonna have shitty days, no matter what. But if you have grit and you're willing to stick it out that first month, like you did, then it's 2 years, then it's 3 years, then it's 4 years, and all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you're 4 years in. 400 sales is not hard for you anymore. Like you can just go out there and sling deals in front of people. So I'd say like you have to be driven, and then you have to have grit. Like that's probably grit.
So when you're recruiting somebody, I guess what do you do? What can you ask, or what are indications that somebody would have those traits?
I mean, for me, it's simple. Like I can almost, like you said, you can feel that. You can feel the energy or something, right? If you know someone's going to be good, the first thing that I'm going to look for is confidence, which I'm sure you do too. Like they're not looking down at the table; they're looking at you. Make eye contact, like shake your hand. Like I'll ask them questions about their background, like what they've done in the past. I don't know if it's just me or the team that I'm around. Most of them have been in some sports role. You know what I mean? Like whether it's the majority of our team is wrestlers or basketball players. I'm not saying that they have to be, because we've had some that are just skateboarders or whatever, but that's the first thing I'm looking for is confidence, for sure. Like if a guy walking up to me, his head's down, not even looking at me in the eye, like, can he learn? Probably. Will he? I'm not sure. That's probably the very first thing I'm looking for is just that confidence in themselves. And then just like digging away to see what, like as you get to know these reps, you like see what they've gone through in the past. And man, some kids have been through some shit and they do good. It's like they have a higher purpose to go make more money so they don't have to live that lifestyle anymore like you did.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, again, I'm not saying that I'm right. What the fuck do I know? I'm just a pest control guy. But that's what I've seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can definitely see people who are more confident and less confident, but I do think a lot of those traits are actually trainable. I do think that sometimes people with bad eye contact or they don't speak clearly. Like a lot of those traits are very trainable. Because to be completely honest with you, I was one of those guys who had terrible eye contact. I wasn't very articulate, and I found a way. Luckily, that I had the guy who taught me how to train, Neil Rumler, the first year. He kind of broke down every single thing that I did, whether it was my head nods, my smile,
Yeah.
um,
Playing
and,
lookaways.
and lookaways, and I trained that out of me. Um, I think even listening, I think that was one of the skills that Parker helped me to kind of understand when I was trying to get to the next level in sales. Um, that was a game changer for me because I realized that I wasn't very good at listening, right? I think a lot of people, for example, they tend to, or just in general, most people aren't very good communicators, right? So most of the words that they say aren't necessarily what they're actually trying to portray into uh, aren't necessarily what they're actually thinking in their head and what they mean, right? So one of the things that I've kind of learned is like when I listen to not the words that people say, but what they mean, it helps me cater my pitch and cater a pitch that resonates with them more. You know what I mean?
That and too, and your confidence came from learning the word tracks and knowing which path the person's going to go down. Because you've done it 10,000, I mean, more than that times now. You've talked to hundreds of thousands of people at this point in your life. You know which track they're going down. You know which way to take them down. Like you already know what the questions that they're going to ask or what the objections they're going to say before they even come out of their mouth. Like you've seen it over and over and over again. So I think a lot of the confidence comes from that. Like you're a master of your craft at this point.
Yeah. Confidence comes from experience for sure. Um, and then also understanding just the principles and the psychology of what's actually going on in a sale, right?
Yeah, like where you're at in that sales wheel, right?
For example, one of the things that I learned was there's a difference between a sale and a close. And selling is giving, this is what Parker taught me, is selling is giving somebody a reason to say yes. And closing is giving somebody or taking away their reasons to say no. And that was kind of a game changer for me because I realized, you can have these words and these scripts, but if you're not making reads and making the sales process interactive, then you're not going to know which road to go down necessarily because people can say the same objection and mean completely different things, right? It can be, I got to talk to my wife can mean 5 different things, right? And it's your job to kind of be able to make the read. So even though I've studied the scripts, understanding the sales fundamentals and the psychology behind why people are saying it, when they're saying it, listening to when they're giving objections in the sale, is it a smokescreen? Is it a real objection? Um, yeah, I think that's what helped me, because there's some guys that can just hear things and are copy paste, but I was one of those sales guys who had to understand the psychologies and the principle behind what behind the conversation, and that's what kind of got me to a much higher level.
Yeah. I have a question for you then. When you're hanging out, like you have a lot of reps, been around a lot of reps. What's the difference between a guy who does 200 and 1,000? Let's just say they're both 3 years in, 4 years in, same level. What's the difference?
Um, okay, so I think the difference between somebody who does 200 and 1,000, I think there's 400 is a talent level. I think 1,000 is a mindset. I think 200, you can find 200 laydowns in a summer. You don't have to be very good. You're just persistent, right? 200 is not very hard.
You knock 100 days, you find one lay me down a day, and got 200 sales.
Yeah, but I think that at some point, we're all seeing very similar stuff on the doors. And the difference between somebody who can do, a talent level of 400 or 500 to 1,000, that's all just comes down to mindset and, like you would say, grit. I think that's kind of the difference. If somebody can go out and do 400 or 500, I think they could probably do 1,000 if their life depended on it.
Yeah. So it was this guy's second year, and he thought it was 1,000 accounts, right? Which it is. 650,000 or 1,000 accounts this year. It was what it was. And what he didn't realize, it was 1,000 serviced accounts. So he was at like 940 or not, don't quote me on the number, 940 or 960. And he was done. He's like, oh, I'm done. He screenshot it, sent it to me. And you know the feeling like, man, I just hit 1,000 accounts. I'm done. I can be done. He's like 943 or something like that. And I was like,
Not quite.
I was like, how do I respond to this? Like, okay. So I responded to him. And he's just like, he didn't even respond back. So I read it. You know what's going through his mind at this point. And I was like, I didn't say nothing other than that. And I was like, what's he going to do? Wasn't sure. Like at this point, it's just in Wisconsin. Now it's like early November, maybe. He knocked late into the summer. And then didn't do anything for 2 weeks. And also one night, didn't tell anyone, pick up and drove to Tulsa. And finished the summer in Tulsa in like early November. Finished 1,000 accounts. You can't teach people that. He was so close. He went there and did it in like a week and a half. And the first time he was in Tulsa, I think he got like 5 accounts in a week. It was just a different market, Yeah. And then all of a sudden he goes down there and drops like 30 or 40 some in a week and a half. He just wanted to get it done, So like, it's grit. It just really is. You either have it, or you don't, or you learn how to figure it out. Like you said, if your life depended on it, you're going to pull it off.
Yeah, I don't know, but I kind of agree with you in a sense, right? Where I don't necessarily agree with the you have it or you don't, though. I think a lot of things can be trained.
But I think like the grit part you have to have.
The hard work part.
Yeah.
You're saying? Yeah.
Yeah. The hard work part. You have to have
That's hard to train. Yeah. If you have hard work, that's just kind of the first. I mean, you'll go far, for sure, because you can. Yeah, it's kind of like a meta skill.
And like you said early on too, it's like having that conviction in yourself. Like, hey, I can go do this. I can do more. Why are these guys doing better than I can? I feel like I'm smarter and better, look, whatever it may be. But why are they getting more sales? Like having that conviction in yourself, like I can't quit. I have to keep going.
But let me ask you this. Did you believe in yourself the same way you do now as you did when you first started? Right? I'm sure your belief is much higher now. So I think there's an argument to be made that belief can be built.
Yeah. I was just driven at that time, like I believed in myself no matter what. Yeah, for sure. I was driven and I believed in myself, but not to the confidence level I'm saying, not even close. So yeah, I agree with you to a point for sure. But it's interesting. There's a lot of dudes out there throwing down some big numbers like that. Was the record broke this year again? Like 1.7 mil sold in rev.
Who did that? I know Marshall Hawks did 1.5. I think it was.
It was 1.5. Yeah, maybe it was 1.5.
Yeah, and he's an absolute.
That's wild.
Man. Yeah.
Have you ever chatted with him? I haven't. Yeah. I know one of my buddies met him recently. So.
Yeah, Marshall's an animal. I know Marshall pretty good. We've chatted a bunch over the years. I don't necessarily know what makes those guys tick, I think some of them are just maybe crazy. I have no idea.
You have to be a little crazy, yeah.
They got to be a little bit crazy, but to go out and do 1.5 and break records, I think you're a different breed for sure. But I think one thing the grit has shown is that if you can create an environment.
Oh God, yeah, we talk about that all the time, and they did a great job.
Yeah. Like if you're a human who's struggling and don't know where you're going to go and struggling with sales and struggling with any part of life and you're lost, if you surround yourself with people who are driven and people you want to be like and know where they're going, you won't be lost for long.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. Like get around just the right squad, right? No matter what you're doing in life too. Like it's stupid quote as it is. Like you're the average of 5 people you hang out with most, and it's so true. And another one's like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And yes, I hear it all the time. It's super cliche, but it's so true. It's so true. Like as you get older, you just realize you watch your friends from high school, or watch your friends from college, the path that they took, and the potential that they had. It's like you shake your head and like, dang, they had so much potential. They just took the wrong path.
It's frustrating, but I understand. You know, I understand if you're around people who are not driven and not or you don't search for the opportunity. It's very like life's hard, and I think you know that with business. It's like I know that life will beat you down again and again and again, and there are going to be things that are challenging and difficult, and it's like most people are going to lose confidence in themselves and lose belief and lose faith that there's going to be something positive on the other side, um, because life's difficult. But yeah, I think that's why environment's so important.
What's the future look for you, Liam? I know you have some big plans. What you got going on? I'm excited.
For me, I want to go out this summer and do 480,000 in revenue. Um, and after that, I want to start my own branch. I think one of the things that excites me is learning new skills. And I kind of feel like I'm at a bit of a plateau in sales right now. Like I know that I can uh, always learn more about sales, and I'm never going to be perfect, or you can never learn enough, right? But one of the things that kind of fascinated me is just seeing that a lot of the people who are extremely wealthy and have the freedom that I aspire to have aren't necessarily in sales, and they're more, they've created businesses or found other ways and higher level skills to kind of transition to. I think sales is a fundamental skill in business, but I think also you have to kind of learn the other side of things. And for me, starting a company, I think would be a great experience. Just learning how the back end of business works. I'm kind of interested to create an environment of, one of the things that I've worked with a ton of salespeople, and I know how to motivate salespeople and I know what makes them tick. But I also don't know how to build a sustainable machine and fill it with people who aren't necessarily more of like the W-2 type. Like how do you create an environment that keeps W-2 employees happy and create a machine that can just print money over the long term? And that's kind of exciting to me to learn, you
I
know.
think a lot of it comes down to the same thing on the sales side. You have to have training and you have to have a good culture. You get that one person in there in any part of the company that ruins that culture, it's hard for everyone to work. So culture is super important. Even though I feel like early on in my business career, I was told like it was like a buzzword, culture, but I never really got it until I really got it. I was like, I missed the boat for like the first 5 years, And then it's like, it makes sense. And culture, it's again, it's a buzzword, but man, it's a game changer too. Like as you know, on the sales side, it's the same thing for the technician side. Making sure that they're happy that like, it's not just a W-2 job, that they have a path to succeed. Like what their day looks like, what the org chart looks like, what the opportunity that they can have inside the company, where they can grow. If people get to like you do plateaued, even as a technician, and they feel like they're plateaued, they're just going to go chasing the next dollar. So you just got to have a roadmap for your technicians where they can get to in 1 to 5 years, just like your sales guys. And it might not happen early, like right away, right? You're going to grow fast. I'm assuming. You're going to do door to door, not going to do door to door. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to do door to door in Hawaii for the first 2 to 3,000 accounts and get a footprint, and then from there, I'd kind of like to learn about marketing.
Have you ever knocked a door in Hawaii?
I've never knocked a door in Hawaii.
Really? That's so funny. You live there like half the year, right?
Yeah, I live there half the year, but I've never ever knocked a door in Hawaii, which will be interesting, but I also think I'll crush.
Are there a lot? Yeah, I do too. Is there a lot of pest control companies there?
There's a few pest control companies there, yeah, but not very many door-to-door companies. I think there's like one. I think EcoShield's there, and I heard one kid did a golden door there, which I was surprised on, and that's kind of what I was like, oh, maybe I could do door to door here because it's not that big of a market. It's pretty small. and the costs are higher. So most companies don't want to go there. Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna run out of time. I don't want to keep you here all night, but uh, um, what's the next 5 years look like for you?
I want to start a family.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, at
Oh
some,
man, like this is exciting. I've never heard you say that before.
yeah, I mean, I think I've gotten to a point where I've traveled and I've seen a lot. And I think one of the things that would be really fulfilling for me is to, you know, I don't have a girlfriend right now, but eventually meet somebody that I could see myself
Hey,
spending
ladies.
the rest of my life with, and um, have a kid. I think that'd be really cool. That's kind of what I'm looking for at this point, and yeah, that's kind of what the next 5 years look like. As far as my vision for business is, I want to build a company, um, and build a company that allows me the freedom to do what I want when I want. I want to have a house on the beach in Hawaii. I want to have um, the ability to go on surf trips whenever I want, and I really want to uh, have enough money to do work that only I want to do, because I'm never going to stop working. But you know, I've been fascinated in cell psychology and personality and how that affects success, and that's kind of one of the things I'm intrigued in. But yeah, I mean, I can't say that I'm extremely passionate about pest control on the doors. I'm passionate about what it does for people.
Like, do you think any of us like graduated high school or college thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna go kill bugs for a living? None of us like pest control, but like we're out there saving people's homes and like their yards, their kids. Like, we're doing good in the world for sure. But again, it's just a vehicle, and we're good at it.
Hmm.
Will you run a team there, or you just gonna keep it small? A couple guys, you and your brother. What are you thinking?
I'd keep it small. I mean, I have a couple of buddies that would just go out and love to live there, and I think we would go out and put down. I'd like to sell personally for my company, and go put on a bunch of accounts with a couple of buddies, and I think that can control. If I'm selling personally, I can control how the expectations that I set, because Hawaii is a very small market, and if I'm in a market where when you have 100 reps, it's hard to control what you say on the doors.
Oh, for sure. We found out the hard way too. Yeah.
You can have a culture of honesty and integrity, but when the larger you get, the harder it is to kind of um, have the right expectations in place for customers. And I think with a small market, I'd just like to go out and do it with a small group of guys who I know and trust, so the retention can be good, so the service can be good. Um, yeah.
So when you're working for the bigger companies, like the very big ones, and they talk to you about, let's go with reviews or whatnot, getting good reviews, bad reviews, what was their take on it? Like if you look at them up online, like they take some pretty hard hits.
And naturally, they're going to take hard hits because they're so big, right? You can't weed out all the bad apples. If I'm the only one interviewing sales reps that come on my team, then it's a lot easier for me to control who comes into the company. But if there's thousands of sales reps in your company, it's going to be very difficult for you to um, pick great people every single time. But what did they say to me when they were recruiting me? Or
I mean, just while you worked there, like about their reputation, did they care? Did they not care about reviews? Like,
I think the bigger companies get, of course they care about reviews, but
there's such a machine that it's really not that important at that point.
yeah, it's such a machine that they're just looking at, I think, the bottom line, and they're trying to make decisions that are going to really move the needle. Um, and I don't necessarily think that they care about what reps are saying on the doors as much. They're just looking at the bottom line and how it affects it.
Yeah. How would you control your guys in the doors? What they say? How would you make sure that the retention stayed high? They didn't have cancellations all the time.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting to think, because I know in pest control, probably the number one factor in a pest control account staying on for years, or retention in general, is not necessarily the technician that shows up, but more importantly, the sales rep
How it was sold.
how it's sold, and the expectation you set of what the product is gonna do for them. How would I do it if I was in a company? I think it comes down to, like you said, culture. I think people, it, with me, I would just make sure that I have honest people, and I don't tolerate lying at all, or um, or people being rude or mean or whatever it is. I just expect people to treat people with respect and dignity. And yeah, I think, but I mean, for you, that's a question I'd actually ask you. It's like, you're much bigger now. How do you do that? How do you control that?
Again, like you said, it's at this point, it's hard to control. You can't control everything. They made apps that help, but it's like if you really dive into it, the high cancellation accounts, you can pretty much tell which rep it's going to be pretty quick.
Yep, 100%.
And you set the expectation. You talk with them, just tell them that. Just set your foot in stone, draw a line with them. Like, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to monitor it from here going forward. If it keeps up, we won't be able to work here anymore. And if it changes, it changes. If not, it doesn't. Then they leave. But you have to stay on top of it. But again, you get into it, it's usually a very few people.
I agree. One of the things that I've noticed about big companies that do have do have the best reputations, like, so for example, Fox got the best multiple sale ever, and I think one of the reasons that happened is their culture. Moxie is also pretty good.
Yeah, Moxie's been around for a long time.
They've been around for a long time, and I think part of the reason is Jason Walton, the owner. I mean, he talks about sales skills, sure, but as an owner, as a leader of the company, I think you have to be more focused on the values and principles. And one of the things I noticed when I was at Moxie compared to other big companies that I worked for were the owners talked a lot more about principles and values than they did about crushing the competition. And I think that can have an impact. I think if you're an owner, at least from my perspective, if I had to guess of what I would do as an owner, would be talk a lot and often about the principles and values that this company is going to have.
I agree. I love that. Probably a great spot to end. I'll ask you one last question. Do you listen to much podcasts, read any books?
Yeah.
Got some recommendations for us?
Well, as far as sales books go, I mean, one of the books that was a turning point for me was Spin Selling: Situation, Problem, Implication, Need, Payoff. And then the next book that I found, NEPQ, Jeremy Minor, Way of the Wolf. That was a great book.
That was a really good book.
On sales. As far as podcast, I listen to a lot of Chris Williamson. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I'm not. I'm writing it down.
Chris Williamson has some great podcasts. What other sales podcasts do I like to listen to? I don't really listen to much about sales itself. I think more about, just understanding humans. I listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson, and he's given me advice that I've kind of taken into sales and my everyday life that has helped me to be a better listener and a better communicator and a better understander of people.
Jordan's a stud.
But yeah, I think more important than the podcast you listen to is just your effort in reflecting on what it is that you're listening to and what it is that you're learning, right? Because there's information, there's knowledge and wisdom, and now there's so much information nowadays that, you think you know something when you actually don't. And when I realized, because for example, in sales, there were so many things that I would read that seemed so perfect, and I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. I'm going to go apply it. And when I go apply it, it wouldn't work how I'd expected it to work. And I realized that, okay, for information to become knowledge, to become wisdom, you have to apply a conscious effort into what it is you're learning and record it. And it comes. So yeah, I mean, I don't think podcasts are important, but it's more important of what are you doing with that information?
When you were on the doors, did you record yourself a lot?
Yeah, I have Zero, and I record everything.
What's Zero?
So Zero is a software that allows me to press record once. It goes all day and maps out the entire sales conversation of everything that I have.
How do you spell that?
SIRO.
Look at that. That's a win right there. Amazing. So you just press play one today and you record everything?
And you leave it running on your iPad, and it records and transcribes every sales conversation. It can find common themes, common objections you're struggling with. And that's really helpful. Yeah.
That's awesome. He's dropping bombs now. Dang. That's cool. Yeah. Awesome, man. We're an hour and 30 minutes into this thing already. Yeah, we're cranking. We could probably talk for a couple more hours.
Yeah.
Let's definitely, obviously, we'll stay in touch. But I'm excited to have you back on. I can't wait till you launch your first summer in Hawaii. We'll have to catch back up after your summer, see how your summer went, and get things rolling. I'm coming to visit you. I'm not joking.
You're welcome to come out to Hawaii anytime to visit me, man. Once I get set up out there, I think it'd be a blast. I think your kids would have fun. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, again, thanks for hanging out with us. I appreciate your friendship. You're a stud in the industry. Keep doing what you're doing.
You're awesome, Jonas. You're the man.
Cool. Talk to you soon. See ya.
Appreciate you. Have a good one.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Pest Control Millionaire. We don't charge any money for the show, obviously, but the podcast isn't free. You can pay for the podcast by sharing it with your friends and your family. So please like and subscribe and give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. These things make a huge difference for us. If you have any specific questions you want answered about the business or your life by me or my guests, send an email to info@pestcontrolmillionaire.com. And if you want to get in touch with me about any personal business coaching, check out our website at www.pestcontrolmillionaire.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys again on the next one.